if you focus on something enough, it will probably happen. So if that's the case, I say focus on the good stuff and attract that into your life. All right, Andy, welcome to the podcast. This one's been a while in the works. Thanks for being on here. So let's start with this. Introduce yourself. Tell us the name of your company, where you're at, what kind of work you do, some general stuff about your business.
My name is Andy Kolp. I started Epic Building Company in Central Ohio in 2005, and we are predominantly a remodeling company. We do a little bit of new construction. I would say our remodeling is completely custom, everything from bathroom projects all the way up to large scale additions, remodels, and new construction, as I mentioned.
Gotcha. And how many employees do you have?
We are currently at 6 employees, including myself.
Gotcha. And you've grown quite a bit in the last few years. We'll talk about that a little bit. So let's talk about your career and your background. What were you doing before you started your business?
So I grew up in a construction family. My grandfather was a plumber. My dad was a builder, moved into commercial construction. So I grew up in the industry. Construction was kind of my passion as long as I can remember. I ended up going to school for construction management. And when I graduated, I landed a job with a nationwide home builder, production builder. I worked there for about 2.5, 3 years. Always had the intent of starting my own business. So it was a good stepping stone for what I'm doing now.
So you always knew you wanted to be in construction. And how did you know you wanted to do your own thing, to be your own, to be a business owner?
I think, as long as I can remember, I like the idea of being in control of my own future, at least as much as that's possible. So really, as long as I can remember, I kind of had this plan. I would say as early as 6th, 7th grade, the plan to have some land and some property and start a family and start my business. And it was just kind of this thing that's been hanging out there, and it was a goal I was working towards. Even when I landed, that position right out of school, it was a short-term thing. It was a stepping stone. It was a learning, a job where I could learn a lot of things that I hadn't learned yet. It's kind of always been my passion to do it. And here I am living my dream.
So we've talked quite a bit about some of the habits you picked up working for that production builder. What were some of the best habits that you learned working for a big company like that? Well, first of all, talk about like how many houses were you responsible for? Let's start with that.
So I started with them kind of doing a stint in each section of the office. So I did a little bit in purchasing and estimating, CAD, sales design center, even accounting a little bit. And then they put me out into the field. I would say within about 3 to 4 months, I had 7 to 10 houses under construction, and then quickly moved to, I think the most I had was 50 to 55, something like that, between 2 or 3 different neighborhoods. And, that was within a couple years. So as far as the habits, there's a lot of good systems that a company like that has in place, and I tell people I wasn't God's gift to construction. That's not how I was able to go from, college kid or idiot right out of college, as the guys always used to call me, to managing 50 houses. It wasn't that I was that good. It was the systems that they had. So, if I was looking at those systems, I think it boiled down to a checks and balances process, milestones throughout the construction process, making sure that things were completed properly. I learned a lot about the importance of communication with clients and just how to handle clients, and that building relationships with trade partners was a big takeaway from that position. There's just a lot that you can gain out of that, and they gain as well. I think the most important thing I took was the importance of routine. I had a pretty stringent daily routine in that position. You almost had to with that many projects going, and having to manage that many projects at one time. So, it was a pretty consistent routine. I didn't let a whole lot mess with it. And, that was, I think, what helped make me successful there.
What did your daily routine look like? Can you talk about some specific parts of that routine that were most valuable for you?
So in those days, it was, it was a production style neighborhood. So I had, at the most, I would say generally, I was in one or two neighborhoods that were fairly close together. So, it was basically roll up into the job trailer, get my stuff situated, walk every room, every house every day. That was kind of the mantra. So, I was putting eyes on the outside of the house, every room inside the house, top to bottom, making a list of, deficiencies or schedule items or order items, those kind of things, updating my schedules, all of that as I walked each individual home. Then, generally it was that took several hours of the morning or most of the morning, depending on workload. We would move into checks and balances, if it was a frame in line or a foundation in line, something that was going through our checklist, making lists for the framer to come back, punch out, that kind of stuff. And then, would move into client meetings or office meetings, things like that in the afternoon. And there were some deviations, but in general principle, that's kind of how it happened. The walk every room, every house, every day was the big one that really stuck with me. And I really try to push on my guys now because it's important. You don't see everything the first time you look at it. Sometimes you get those blinders on, you're just walking without intent. But if you do it every day, you may not see it the first 3 days of the week, but on the fourth or fifth, you're bound to catch it. So, that was a big takeaway and something I feel still is very important, even what we do today.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed back when I was managing projects was you would walk it and look at it, and sometimes the problems were the things you saw, but then a lot of the problems came from the things you didn't see, like things that weren't happening. And those are tough to catch those because they're just not there. Something's not happening, or something didn't happen. Something wasn't roughed in right, or somebody's not doing something. How do you, did you run into that situation where stuff not happening was a problem? And if so, how, and maybe it's even how you deal with it today, how do you catch the things that aren't there, if that makes any sense?
Back then, well, actually, even today, still, our workload's pretty hefty. So, missing things is just part of the process, unfortunately. I mean, I would love to hold everybody to the highest standard and say, hey, we're going to catch everything all the time. But, it's an unrealistic expectation. To me, I think it boils back down to the consistency of doing it. It's eventually it'll come up. Your head may not be in the right place one day as you walk a project, because you're hurried to get to a meeting or to get to a baseball game, whatever it may be. But, I think eventually you catch it. The other thing that I've started to work with our team on is trying to review our specs and selections daily. And the same would apply back then. You have an outline of what the selection items are, what the checklists are to go into the home. So back when I worked for that production builder, they kept it very simple because it was the same houses all over and over and over again. And there was checklists that I could follow. And today with what we do being fully custom, there's not, we can have general checklists, but every house is different. Every project is different and has different things. So, in today's terms, I try to push my guys towards working on looking at our specs and selections, basically the outline of the project. So, as we work through our projects in pre-construction, we're notating conversations we had with clients and, placement for, certain things in the project. And, we're trying to capture all of that. And for our field team to do a good job, they need to be reviewing that as well. So even if they don't catch it on day one or two, hopefully they're reviewing those on a regular basis and they follow up and catch those.
We just had a mastermind group call yesterday about punch lists. How did the production builder handle punch list? Was there something unique about that? Was there an area manager or a second set of eyes that came in, or somebody else who got involved with the punch list?
So what we would do, it was actually tied to our bonus system at the time. Myself as the construction manager for the neighborhood, I, typically had a punch out guy or two working with me or working in my neighborhood or floating between projects. I would go through, make a list, and we would do, let's say from interior trim was completed, I would go through and do a trim punch list and get the trim guys to come back and do it, hopefully eliminating a big long list at the end. the same kind of throughout the process. Then we had what we called a carpet prep list, which was this, I remember, 3-4 page checklist of things to go through. And that was kind of our punch list things, like go through every bedroom, make sure the doors are adjusted properly, the windows operate, the smoke detectors work, those kind of things, and back it out. So by the time we got done, they had a what they call a quality inspection with the area manager. He would come in and walk the project, or walk the home and make a final list. And that actually tied to our bonus structure. We had to have that list completed before we did the orientation with our client. So the idea being to get the house as complete as possible, basically saying, we're done. Here's your house. Here's how to use everything. By the way, do you see anything else? And so we've actually adapted a similar system to our projects now, where my field team works to get their projects completed 100% or as close to as possible. We have a scheduled inspection date where I will go out and kind of put my stamp of approval on things, give them the official list that we need to complete, and then we do a similar orientation process with our clients.
Yep. Good stuff. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about discipline, because you are you may not agree with this, but you're one of the most disciplined guys that I've ever met. And a few of the other guys in the group have said the same thing. So let's start with your weight loss journey. This would surprise a lot of people, but how much weight did you lose over the past however many years it's been, and how did you do it?
So from the span of the highest, the highest weight I was ever at to the lowest weight I've ever been at since adult life, was about 75, 80 pounds difference. I've relented on that slightly here over the last several months. I enjoyed my summer and Thanksgiving for sure. It kind of became part of just a general life change, which led me to a lot of the changes I've been making in my business. In a roundabout way, it led me to meeting you, a number of things. So it just got to the point where I was kind of over it. I was always tired. I didn't have energy. Be playing sports with my kids, and just would make the excuse, I'm fat, I can't keep up, whatever. And I just got tired of it. So it started slowly. I think that's the key, was the key for me. It didn't really boil down to like, I got to lose 10 pounds by next month. It was routine change. It was discipline, changing my routine and focusing on the long game, which we can get into, but we probably will. The same is very relatable to business. So it made all the difference in the world for me, not only physically, but just mentally, confidence, all that kind of stuff. And for me personally, once I develop a habit, I have to do it. So for me, the weight loss thing started with just eating better. And then, I lost some weight and started to see results. And then I was like, let's sprinkle in a little bit of exercise a couple of days a week. And then it quickly turned to 7 days a week, and then on and on. But man, I can't say enough about the differences it made, just mentally and obviously physically. It was a game changer for me, for sure.
One of the more extreme things you did was 75 hard. And then I think maybe you went to the next level after that. For people who aren't familiar with it, you can go look up 75 hard. But what did that do for you to go through 75 hard? Like, what were the ripple effects?
For me, I was doing a lot of the stuff that's in that program already. And, for a long time, I had a friend that was doing it, and I said, I don't need to do that. I already do most of it. And I just kind of decided one day to start. It's really a mental toughness thing. And it taught me a lot about, preparation and planning my day. I mean, that's on a very basic level. You've got a checklist of things that need to happen, and they take time and they take energy, and you have to plan for it. So, planning your day, that's just a very basic level. Teaches discipline to do the hard things, which as a business owner, that's, it's huge. You don't always want to do everything that you have to do, and sometimes, hey, I work for myself, I have freedom and flexibility. Well, you really don't. You have to be disciplined to do the things you're supposed to be doing, because you have people relying on you. So, that program taught, or I guess that up. It pushed me towards that a little bit more. It certainly helped with the confidence thing even more. I think it provided a little bit of clarity for me, just, what my goals are, and just mental toughness, knowing I can do those hard things. And, it's the confidence and the clarity kind of played together. And I think really that this whole process, or the whole process from where I started at my heaviest, through the 75 hard program, was really just understanding the importance of investing in myself. And I would say I know a lot of business owners, and I know a lot of them that don't take time to do that. And I was guilty of it for a lot of years, and from time to time I still am. But I think the importance of investing in yourself, whether it's physically, exercise, that kind of stuff, whether it's eating the right things, whether it's, taking a mental break, whatever it may be, learning new things, providing or surrounding yourself with positive people, positive information, all of that stuff makes a huge difference. It's the truth. You can't replace that kind of stuff.
I'm curious, how did 75 hard help with confidence?
When you do a list of tasks for 75 days straight, it doesn't matter how, some of them were very easy, some of them are annoying, and some of them are difficult, especially on days where, it's not the best day, you have a long day, miserable, you have a headache, you don't feel good, whatever it may be, and then you have to go outside in the cold or the rain or whatever to do a 45-minute workout for the second time that day. When you get done with it, you kind of look at it and say, you know what, if I can do that, I can do anything. And that's really the confidence builder, I think.
Let's talk about mental toughness a little bit. Clearly doing 75 hard makes you mentally tough because you just have to persevere through all of this stuff, or you have to start over. How important is mental toughness for a business owner?
That is probably one of the most important things that an entrepreneur has to possess. I don't know that I've ever met a business owner or somebody that's in higher level business that has said, every day is just easy. Like, we can just do this. This is great. It's usually more like you get kicked in the butt and fall over on your face, and you have to find the mental toughness to get back up and keep going. That's really what it is. If somebody's got it figured out and has a smooth road, then they're either not trying hard enough or they're really, really lucky. I don't know which. So I think that's where the mental toughness comes in. And I'll be honest with you, I struggle with it every day still. Things are pretty good right now, but personally, I have to find ways to keep my mind straight. And, you get one person that pulls out of a project or cancels on you that you were really expecting. And, all of a sudden you lose a $500,000 sale or a whatever sale. And that's a confidence, that'll tear you down pretty quick. So, mental toughness it's huge in really any industry, business in general. I can't say enough for that. And it's a struggle. I struggle with it every day, but I think the mind is just like any other muscle in your body. You have to exercise it. And if you don't, you lose it,
So when those things happen, the inevitable cancellation, something bad, well, quote, bad happens, and customer backs out of a contract, somebody says, no, I don't want to come work for you, or they quit, or some bad situation happens. What have you found, other than like going through 75 hard and kind of building up that inherent mental toughness? How do you deal with those things? How do you work through that so it doesn't completely take you off your game?
I think you have to have some time for reflection. And, bad things happen all the time to good people. Sometimes, I know I've fallen in a trap where I think I take it personally. They didn't want to do the project with me because I was too expensive, or because they didn't like me, or who knows, whatever the reason. And you start to tell yourself a story that probably isn't even true, but it's a story that's easy to tell. So, I try to, put things in perspective, do a root cause analysis, look at why it happened. Maybe it was something I did. If it is, hey, I make mistakes. Let's learn from them. Let's not do it again. if it, some things I can't control. If a project costs $500,000 and the customer had a $300,000 budget, I can't control that. So, I think keeping perspective there is big. Understanding again why it happened and what we can do to correct it in the future, if anything. Positive reflection is, or I guess gratitude, what I was looking for, is a big thing as well. Hey, they decided not to do the project with us because of cost. Well, look at it from the opposite side of the coin. That's probably a good thing, because they would have been, scrutinizing every penny we spend the whole way through, or they were going to be a pain in the butt client anyway, or, whatever. So look at the positives in the situation and then gratitude for what you do have.
Yeah. To me, gratitude is huge. It just rewires your brain, helps you focus on the positive. Personally, I tend to focus on the negative, what's not going well. I think most people do. I wish I was more like, these happy-go-lucky people who always see the shiny side of the coin, and there's every cloud has a silver lining and all they can see is the good, but that's just not my nature. And so I have to do gratitude every day. I might spend 15 minutes a day writing the things I'm grateful for. And if I don't do it for a few days, I can feel it. Yeah. So if that's one of the things I have to do, and I recommend everybody does it, because when I heard a quote from Wayne Dyer, who has written a lot of books about mindset and that kind of thing. And he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. So
that there is so much truth to that. I was, for a lot of years, I paid attention to the news. Like I would, the news was always on. I'd always be paying attention to what's going on. And you have to. I mean, I want that to sound like I bury my head in the sand now, but man, I'm a lot happier that I do. I bury my head in the sand a lot more than I ever used to, and I'm a lot happier person for it. It's really hard to grow and to plan, strategize, how awesome your business can be and where you want to take it when everything you hear on the news is negative, and the economy this, and interest rates that, and I mean, how do you say I'm going to scale my business up when everything on that you're seeing on TV is the whole world's going down the toilet? I try to limit my exposure to that stuff and focus on the gratitude and the positives and the things that I can control. Because there's a lot I can control that, I can't control what the economy is doing. I can't control what interest rates are doing, but I can sure control how I approach the day, how I move my business forward.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Things that are outside of your control, all you can do is be anxious and worry and be afraid of those things. And if you spend all your time thinking about that, you won't spend any time thinking about the stuff you can control. And chances are, like what I found is when I focused on the negative stuff, I got more of that negative stuff. Kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is something I'm kind of concerned about right now. Here we are in 2022. There's a lot of talk about recession. And if everybody thinks we're in a recession, then we're going to be in a recession, because it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's almost like if you focus on something enough, it will probably happen. So if that's the case, I say focus on the good stuff and attract that into your life. Yeah.
100% agree.
All right. So we started working together. It's been about 3 years now. Yeah, about 3 years. We met at CoCon, the Co-Construct conference, way back before COVID in 2019. So let's go back to then. What were some of the main problems you were having before we started working together?
So that was kind of, sort of transitioning from my fitness journey, which is really what kicked it all off. Like this, I don't even know that it was a big epiphany. It was just like one day I wanted to change, and that was everything. Like I just want to change it all. So I took care of that. We've already talked about that. Now kind of looking at business, like where was I at? What was I doing? I had, in 2019, I was 14 years into business, almost 15. And I was doing okay. I mean, I was making a comfortable living. I had one employee at the time. I didn't really have a lot of complaints, but I was most definitely stuck in the work. I had a job, I didn't have a business. And, I was personally limiting what the business could accomplish. I don't know that I would say I had a fixed mindset, but I hadn't fully graduated to a growth mindset at that point. That business was stagnant. It was level. It was even. It was comfortable. It just was what it was. But I was giving work away. I was wasting time, just spending my time in the wrong areas, doing the wrong things. And, it's kind of part of this epiphany. I guess I kind of alluded to it back early on in our conversation where I had this set of goals that I drafted for myself very early on, right? Have a successful business and have, all this stuff. And I guess I got to the point where some people would say had a successful business. It was steady. I was making, enough to pay my bills and do that. I wasn't too worried about where the next project was coming from, things like that. But it was just level. And I got to the point mentally where I think I had checked all these boxes of this original set of goals, but I never moved the goalpost. It was kind of like, okay, I'm here. How do I do? And, I think I went to that CoCon conference, not really sure what to expect. I had no intentions of looking for a coach or anything like that. It was just, I like Co-Construct. I like the company. I like what they're doing. Let's go check this out. And hey, it's in Florida, so it's good win. And, the more I met people at that conference, the more I learned, like, yeah, maybe on paper, I'm making a few dollars here and there. I'm kind of successful. I'm not really that successful. And there's so much I didn't know. I was meeting people that were just like blowing my mind with the things that they knew and the things they were doing. And, and so I'm very bad at this, but I compare myself to others, and it's a terrible thing, terrible habit. Don't ever do that. But I do it still. I think it's human nature. I'm like, oh man, I'm not as good as I thought I was. So that confidence took a big hit. And you and I talked a little bit down there, talked a little bit after, and that was sort of the turning point where I was like, you know what? I've reached this set of goals. We need to create some new ones. We need to move forward. Let's sign up with Todd and see where it goes. Because I don't want to be working in my business. I don't want to be working 40, 60, 80 hours a week forever. I wanted to get out of that.
See, you mentioned a couple of things I want to dig into. You said you felt like you owned a job. What is the difference between owning a job and owning a business to you?
When you have a job, you have this list of tasks that you have to create every day or you have to accomplish every day. You don't have the ability to turn it off. Or if I were to walk away, I guess the biggest thing is if I were to walk away from my job, my income walks away. Hopefully my intent is we get the business to the point where I can not necessarily walk away, but I can remove myself and I've built a good solid team to maintain everything and everything keeps going well. And I can, provide assistance to them here and there. I can, work at growing different areas of this business. I can look at additional ideas, things like that. When it's a job, and not picking on trade partners, but let's just say randomly a plumber, right? There's a lot of good plumbers out there, lots of them. A lot of them work for other companies and they say, hey, I want to go out and start on my own. Perfectly good. That's great. They're good tradesmen, maybe in some cases, not great business people. So they're out there doing the work and they're doing a really good job at doing the work, but they're not growing a business. They're not managing a business. So in other words, maybe it's only them, maybe they're self-performing the work, that kind of thing, which again, nothing wrong with that. But if you're working on the job every day and you're not managing your business and invoices and accounts payable and where you're getting your next job from and all those kind of things, you have a job. It may be working for yourself, but you have a job. And I was there, and that's, heck, I still feel like I'm there some days, but, I'm working to get away from that.
Yeah. You also use the word stagnant. What What did that feel like? What do you mean by stagnant?
So I would say our sales volume was pretty consistent. I actually looked it up this morning just for a comparison purposes, and I would say for a section of 4 years, we were within about $30,000 of each other, in sales volume, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I think part of that, well, a big part of it, if not all of it, really comes back to me. I was comfortable, and Todd, you know me well enough to know that I'm not a fast decision maker at all, but I was comfortable where I was at. And, like to get to the next step meant hiring, it meant taking on more risk, meant taking on all these other things. And I was just comfortable. So comfortable equated to stagnant at the time. And, I think I'm not even sure that where I'm at today was on my radar when we first started talking. I think that's kind of evolved over the last couple years. But now it's like gung ho, like let's do that. It's just a different set of goals now than I had 3 years ago.
Hmm. So what did that frustration feel like back then? Owning a job, feeling stagnant, not going anywhere. Like, what did that feel like for you?
I was lost for a little bit. I had kind of reached that first set of goals and that first, that first plateau, and I was kind of lost. Where do I go from here? I knew there were certain things I wanted to streamline. I wanted to start creating processes and systems and some uniformity in what we did. At the time, even in 2019, there was just two of us. And so, I was still wearing most of the hats in the business. I had another guy that was kind of handling a lot of field operation stuff, but I was still heavily involved in the field. So I was kind of wearing every hat still. And it was an overwhelming process because I'm not a good accountant. I don't like doing it, and I'm not good at it. There's certain things I'm good at and certain things I'm not, and I was trying to separate those. So I think I really just had to reevaluate like where I'm at on my journey, where do I want to go? And I just wasn't prepared to do that. As a business owner at that time for 14, 15 years, there was an amazing amount that I didn't know. And I still don't. I mean, I've learned a lot since then, but I came from more of a trades background. Even though I went to college for construction management, I'd always done trade work. I was carpentry background, those kind of things. And that doesn't necessarily prepare you for scaling a business or growing a business, creating proper processes and procedures. And I didn't have the time. I didn't make the time to analyze what the problems were. I just sort of went with comfortable. It's the same, even keel. Let's just keep on level. So I think once I reevaluated that's, the things that led me to start working with you. And I would say even the first probably year and a half of the 3 years that I've worked with you, I wasted it. Maybe not 100%, but I wasted a lot of it. Let's put it that way.
Well, why do you say that? How do you mean?
I was in the process of, trying to create the time to step back enough to be able to analyze and do the things a business owner should. And I was, for that first year and a half, it was like I'd be in the field, I'd be doing something, and be like, oh, hey, I got a call with Todd. I'd hop on for 45 minutes or an hour or whatever. And then I'd go right back to the field stuff I was doing. And then a week later, it'd be another call with you, or 2 weeks later. And I'd look at my list of things that I was supposed to do, and I hadn't done a thing. So it was like, there was times where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Why am I paying for this? And then I honestly don't know what the switch was that flipped. I think I'd trace a lot of it back probably to an event you held last fall I was kind of ramping up going into that event, and maybe it was the builder mastermind group starting, somewhere in there, I started to gain traction.
Gotcha. So let's look at where your business was in 2019. It was you and you had one employee, right?
Yep.
How would you describe your stress level back then?
It was pretty high. You know, being the guy that was wearing most of the hats, just I felt like I was trying to keep up with everything. It was putting out fires all the time. The squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of a thing. It was just it was a bit of a rough patch. We were slightly profitable, but the business wasn't managed properly because I was not focusing on certain areas. We were giving away work, and we really didn't. We were kind of a ship lost at sea. We had no direction. I had no vision, no real plan for growth, nothing. It was just kind of like, we're out here doing work. That's it. That's what we're doing. So, I was a bit lost at the time.
And how did you feel about growing the business back then? Were you excited about growing the business, against growing it, confused? How would you describe your mindset about growth?
Scared probably would be the best word. I think it was, everybody has the grand illusions and the visions to make a bunch of money. I mean, that's partly why we're in business, right? You want to make some money. It's good. But, there's when you grow a business, there's a lot of things that come along with it. So now you're talking additional employees typically to be able to sustain the growth. That's a scary thing for a lot of people. It took me 10 years. No, it took me 12 or 13 years to hire my first employee. So for 13 years, it was just me. Well, how much can you do just by yourself? I mean, I could do a fair amount, but the way I was doing it, I was limiting myself. So I had one, and that was a big step. It was scary and whatever, but we got that under our belt. Payroll, never missed payroll or anything like that. And so now was the next step was we got to hire somebody else and to take the next step. And it's a scary thing because now I'm trying to support my family. I'm trying to support my first employee's family, and now I'm bringing somebody else on. So that it's scary. What if I fail? Yeah, all those questions you ask yourself. What happens here? What I'm comfortable in what we're doing right now. I'm comfortable making a comfortable living. If I don't rock the boat, everything can just be comfortable for the next 30 years of my life. But is that really what I want? And I had to get over that mental block of like, we have to do this. And it's not like, if you find the right people, you can do it, and you can do it successfully.
So what's so bad about being comfortable for the next 30 years?
There's nothing bad about it. It's just not me. That's, I mean, it is, but it's not. I think I kind of get to the point where I need a new challenge, a new set of goals, and new something, right? So going back to that stagnant word, I was at the point where I was comfortable and stagnant, and then you get bored, and then your mind wanders off to doing different things, and you're not as focused as you should be, and whatnot. I would say that also, if this is my business and I'm in control of things and I have employees, being stagnant is a disservice to them, because who wants to work in the same job for their entire lives or however long it may be and be stagnant? Some people are comfortable with that, but knowing where mine's at and having a growth mindset and wanting to grow and get better and improve every day. I kind of feel like I owe that to my employees so that they're not making, the same amount of money they made 10 years ago today, or there's opportunity for them to move up a ladder, those kind of things. So I don't think it's bad, but for my mindset, it just wasn't a good fit.
So if you think what were you concerned about if you got to the end of your career, approaching retirement? What were you concerned about if you had just stayed comfortable or stayed stagnant?
A little bit of financials, of course. I mean, that factors into just about everything. I got big hopes and dreams and plans for, later on in life and what I want to do. So I got to figure out how to pay for all that. That's part of it. But I think really for me, looking back, you know, what did I accomplish? If I had let's just say a 50-year career in construction, you know, that sounds like a long time, but like, what did I accomplish in that 50 years other than some nice kitchens and, bathrooms or additions and things like that? And I think for me, the construction part comes easy now, just as long as I've done this. The construction part's relatively easy. It's so now my new challenge is the business. And I think I like to be challenged. I like to go that way. And I think, if I'm looking at the end of my career, looking back, I want to be able to say, hey, I built this, not I built this house, or I built this bathroom, or I built this kitchen, or this project. I want to be able to say, look, I built this company, and the company is serving our community. It's giving back to the community. It's serving our employees. It's doing all these things. So it took me a while to get to this vision. But ultimately, that's kind of where I landed.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. So you've done a lot of work in your business in the last few years. What would you say have been some of the most impactful systems you've put in place, or the most impactful changes you've made in your business that have really been like lead dominoes for you?
I think three in particular that I can rattle off. A vision statement, which is sort of the roadmap, like where we're going. I guess a vision statement, I guess, is more the destination. The accountability chart was more like the roadmap of who are we hiring, how are we going to get to this vision. So, if I said, hey, I want to quadruple my sales volume, how are we going to do that? I can't do it with the 6 people I've got now. We have to create a roadmap to who are we going to need? What are the pieces that we're going to have in place? Those kind of things. So vision statement, understand where we're going, accountability chart, who's going to be a part of it and how we're going to do it and how everything's organized. And then we focused a lot on pre-construction and implementing a pre-construction agreement couple years ago now, about 2 years ago, has been a total game changer for us. It changes the way we approach projects. It certainly provided additional income. We're saving time. It's changed our sales strategy. It's given us stronger leads, a little bit more ability to plan the construction process, a little bit more ability to plan our production schedule. So, the pre-construction agreement tops all of that, I think. But all of those pieces together have really shaped what we've done over the last year or two.
Yeah. So take us to the moment after you started putting these systems in place, when you realized that the work you were doing was actually starting to work to solve some of those issues and make some changes.
I think when you and I talked, we were on a call one day, and you were just kind of like, dude, it's time to hire somebody. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And we made 2 hires off of that conversation. Right? I put two postings out there, one for an additional site manager or, field production guy, and then one for a pre-construction coordinator, selections coordinator. And, I think I resisted it, again, back to what we talked about earlier, comfort levels and things like that. I was scared, whatever you want to call it. I was resisting it. But, the pre-construction process was going well, sales were going well, and all I was doing was shoveling dirt onto this. I was basically getting in a deeper hole every day, because I was doing all this stuff and selling these projects and making all these promises. But, it's just me doing, at the time, it was just me doing pre-construction. And I was, how are we going to build all these projects I'm selling? How are we going to get them ready to build? And it was just sort of like that smack upside the head that was like, dude, you just got to take the next step. So once I was able to kind of digest that and realize it, and then reflect and look back, it was like, huh, I guess all the stuff that we've been working on is, is helping. It's working. So now we need more people. And then, we'll continue to do it and improve and refine, and then we'll need more people again. And like, this is kind of cool. We're building something here, and it's gaining traction. So I think that's really where I boil it back to. And that was 5 months ago, probably 6 months ago.
Yeah. 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 I'll say you are not one to rush into decisions. You're definitely not a ready, fire, aim kind of a guy. I'll give you
No,
that.
not at all. Which, it, I'm sure it hurts me a lot, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, and thinking about this, that lack of decision making or quick decision making or even risk taking, it can be good as a business owner, but I think you need to be able to have some risk tolerance. And you're not going to be able to take a company from $1 million sales volume a year to 5 million without taking some risks. And you're never going to find that easy, steady path there. So you know that's another thing to keep at the forefront of thought as you're making decisions.
Yeah, most people are familiar with the acronym ROI, return on investment, but there's also a COI, a cost of inaction. So like the cost of inaction, if you're dealing with profit bleeds, for example, $8,000 a month, which is not unusual for contractors, that's the cost of inaction. Every month that meter's running, you're losing 6 to 8,000. I've talked with folks who are losing $20,000 a month in profit bleeds, and every month they don't do something about it, it's just bleeding out. And then there's opportunity costs, and then like the big one, I spoke with business owner a month or so ago, and he said, if I just had more time, then I could go do my own real estate investment. And I said, so how much do you think this has cost you? And he just kind of did some math in his head, and he's like, man, I've been in business for like 20 years. And if I had more time, because it wasn't a matter of money, he had money to invest, he just didn't have time to do it. He said, I could have like millions of dollars of real estate in my portfolio now if I just had more time. So that's the big cost of inaction, not to mention the effect on relationships. If you're working 70, 80 hours a week, the cost of not fixing that is probably being carried by your spouse and your kids and your family. So yeah, that cost of inaction is a big one, definitely. So let's talk for a minute about something that, when people are being honest, if they're growing their team, they're afraid to hire. That's just the reality. We had a session at one of our live meetups where we're talking about how do you attract and retain top quality talent, and we ended up just talking about fear the whole time, right? So what were some of the fears that were holding you back when you were frankly reluctant to pull the trigger and make a hire?
I alluded to it earlier. For me, I just, I care about people. So, if I'm going to hire somebody, I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision. It's something that's sustainable because I'm affecting their life, their livelihood. They may be leaving a good job to come take a chance working for a small builder, remodeler like myself. So I think that's definitely a fear. The fear of what are they going to do every day? Do I have enough work to keep them busy? Do I have enough revenue to pay them? How much do we have to increase our sales volume to cover the additional overhead expense? And is that even possible? There's so many that go into it. Fear of failure. I'm not a huge fan of the word failure, but the fear of failure of, if I make too many wrong decisions, we're just going to fall flat on our face and I'm going to be living in a box on the street. It's like, is that the reality? No, but is it possible? Yeah, I guess. So, there's a lot of things that play into it. And I think fear of the unknown is probably the one that governs all of it. You just don't know. You tell yourself that story, and it's usually the negative one because that's the way our minds are wired. Oh, all these things are going to go wrong. What if war erupts in the entire world, or what if we can't get fuel or materials, or what if? And, again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. You just got to focus on the positives and, try to limit your exposure to those negatives and understand that you are in control of it. I think as a business owner, if you take the right stance, you have a surprising you'll find that you have a surprising ability to control things, at least control your future. If you let the world happen to you, you're always going to be getting kicked in the pants. Always. If you take control of what you're doing and you focus on sales and you focus on building relationships and putting out a good quality product and communicating and all this stuff, then the dominoes are going to fall into place because you're focusing on it. And 90% of the other business owners out there in the construction world aren't. And I think that's something to keep in mind because it's easy to lose track of, and I do it on a regular. But when you think of it that way, it's like, man, I can do anything.
That is so good. Yeah, you have a surprising ability to control what happens to you. Yeah, you are. One of the things I like to say is somebody is going to determine how successful you are. The economy, the politicians, or the competition, your trade partners, your customers, somebody's going to determine how successful you are. I say it might as well be you. You might as well get in the driver's seat instead of just being along for the ride. But that requires taking ownership, saying, you know what? I get to drive this thing. It's up to me. And that makes you look in the mirror and say, all right, this is all on me. There's a scene from the Will Smith movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, where he was homeless. And there's this scene, I heard the guy who the movie's based on, I can't remember his name. He was talking about when he was in a subway station restroom where he was sleeping with his son, and he was leaning on the sink, looking in this piece of stainless steel that was the mirror. He said when things changed was when he was like, man, how did I get here? And he said, I drove here. And he took ownership. I drove here. I'm here because of my choices. And that is a very empowering place to be, because if you drove here, then you can drive somewhere else. You can get somewhere else. But taking control of your life is huge. Yeah, good stuff. All right, so
I love what you said there. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I love what you said, and it really, circling back to the beginning of this, when you asked me about my weight loss, that's kind of where I was. It was like, I was making excuses to the kids, can't keep up, whatever, and it's like, hey, why am I here? It was me, and it took me looking at every decision I made from that point forward to change things. And the same is relatable to business. It's like, do I really need this? Like for weight loss, do I really need to eat this cupcake? No, I don't. For a business, do I really want to take that job? Is that job going to get me to what my goals are? Or is it just money in the bank? And, once you can make that transition to looking in your business at every decision you make and weighing it against your vision, your goals, those kind of things, then you're hitting something right there.
Yeah, love it. So let's talk about what business looks like now. And here we are in this is December 2022. So you can do this a couple of different ways. I'm curious about the change, how much things have changed for you. So let's talk about your sales in 2022.
So 2022 is shaping up to be about a 75 to 80% increase in sales revenue from last year. And that's the work that we're going to have completed by the end of the year. So, like I said, 75 to 80%. Looking at next year, we have a lot of work in the pipeline for next year, some just pre-construction agreements, some, fully committed. But right now our opportunity for what's in our pipeline for 2023 would be probably, let's see here, I would say at least 100% increase from what we're doing in 22, if not more. So, and we have a lot of opportunity, let's put it that way. And now we're just trying to hone our systems, our processes, our procedures, and our team, and get the new team members that we're onboarding now in line so that we can accomplish all of this. So I've basically set the table. Now we just have to execute.
Yeah. So you're saying 2022 revenue is going to be 1.75 of 2021's revenue, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then 2023 is shaping up to be 2 times 2022's revenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. If not, hopefully more. I'm shooting for more like 2.5. But okay. I would say realistically right now about 2 times what 22's was. And we're not even into 23 yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's incredible. You mentioned the pre-construction agreement as one of the crucial systems that really change things for you. If you have this number, approximately how much have you been paid for pre-construction services or pre-construction work this year?
I think this year will probably be somewhere in the 30 to 35,000 range. We actually had a surprising number of repeat clients this year, projects that were repeat customers. And personally, I'm not charging them a pre-construction agreement like we do new clients, just because they're repeat and, we're going to have the work. So we just kind of handle it that way. But, yeah, I'd say about 30, probably 35,000 this year.
Okay. And will you ever do a free estimate again?
Absolutely not. I've come up with a good way to explain. I think anyway, it's a good way to explain it and put it into perspective for clients. If it's something basic like gutters, if you're a gutter contractor, you can go out, you can pull a measurement, multiply it by your price per foot. And there's a few outliers in there, not to diminish anything, but there's a few outliers in there. But for the most part, you know what the project's going to cost, you know what it's going to take. You can go out and figure that all out right in the beginning. For what we do, every project is fully custom. Every project is different. And, if you're looking at, let's say, a kitchen, it can be on the low end of cabinets. You can be fully custom cabinets, inset doors, cherry, whatever. You can spend $3,000 on countertops. You can spend $25,000 on countertops. You can spend this on floors, that on floors. I beat the drum time and time again. Design, scope of work, material selections are the 3 pieces that you need to give somebody an accurate number. If I don't know any one of those 3 pieces, I'm shooting in the dark. And so, that's how I relate it to clients, is why they should invest in it. We are a design build firm, so we will do the design with them and get them to the point of being ready for construction. But even if they come to us with architectural drawings, I have people with the misconception that, hey, we've had our architect, here you go, here's a set of drawings, give me a number. Well, they have that design piece, but I don't know the scope of work and I don't know the material selection. So I'm still missing 2 big pieces to give them numbers. If it's a room addition, are we tying the roof in to the existing shingles, or are we replacing the whole house? Or, are we replacing the windows? Or we have to do the floors go from the addition all the way through and we're replacing hardwood on the entire first floor of the house? Those kind of things are big number changes, tens of thousands of dollars. So it's a disservice in my mind to give somebody a free estimate, because if I'm going through, to give them an accurate number, I have a lot of legwork that I'm giving away for free, which that's stupid business. And, if I don't do the legwork, I'm giving them a fictitious number.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you feel about growing the business now?
So I'm excited about it now. Now it's kind of like I'm in a whole different place than I was 3 years ago. I'd say I'm even in a whole different place than I was a year ago. You know, knowing the numbers, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I know the numbers now better than I ever have in 18 years. So, managing to the numbers is a big thing. In a lot of years past, it was, I charge this, we should be good. Hopefully there's money left over at the end of the year. And that's a terrible way to do it. Now it should be, I know exactly what my overhead costs are, and they are higher because we've hired new people and, we're growing. So they're higher than they've ever been, but I know what they are. They're projected out for the next year. I have enough backlog to be able to look at what do I expect our sales volume to be next year, and I can base our margins off of that. There's a lot of excitement that goes around knowing those numbers and then being able to design what you're doing to meet your goals. I mean, that's the nice part of being a business owner and doing what we do is, we're, especially in the construction industry, for the most part, we're not selling widgets. So we're not like, it's not a laptop that has to fall in this price category. Like I can differentiate my company from my competitors with our customer service level. And that may dictate that I can charge more just because of the service level we provide. We may provide the same finished product, but a lot of people will pay for the better service along the way. So we have the unique ability in our industry to be able to dictate some of that, and finding your niche and finding your niche client and finding or understanding how to manipulate those numbers and work with those goals is a big thing.
Yeah. Good stuff. So you mentioned things your mindset has changed just in the last year. So what has changed? What led to that change in mindset in the last year?
There's a saying, you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you or, more successful than you. You never want to be the smartest guy in the room. And through a lot of the events that you've put on, just people I've introduced, been introduced to through your network, I've been very fortunate to hang out with some really smart guys and gals. And, I do feel like the dumbest guy in the room a lot of times, but, the knowledge that I've gained and, just the passion, the excitement, and, it's not keeping up with the Joneses, but it's kind of like that. It's like if you surround yourself with people that want to get better, you inherently want to get better. And so I would say that, just being a part of some of the things, the events that you've put together, and the people that I've met and continue to have interaction with on a regular basis has made a big difference. Well, that's the only one or not, I don't know, but I would say hands down, it's definitely made a huge difference for me.
Yeah. So you've been part of the Builder Mastermind group, gone through a couple of rounds of some group accountability challenges we've done, come to a few live events, and you're part of this mastermind group now that you guys have kind of developed. A lot of people would say, yeah, it's probably good to be part of a group. There are Builder 20 clubs out there that meet twice a year, or my local home builders association. Yeah, it's probably good. But what has been like what has been a surprising benefit to you about being part of a group of other like-minded construction business owners?
I don't know if it's just the group that I've been fortunate enough to be around, or if it's something that's, commonplace. And when guys and gals get together to talk about this stuff, but the vulnerability that some of these guys and gals show is refreshing. And, I think the perception is that, we're big, strong construction guys, like we can do this and nothing affects me. And, I'm just out puffy chested and everything I do is the best and the right thing. And I would say that there's very, very little of that in the people that I've met. it's refreshing because you can celebrate the wins with people that understand what you're talking about. If you're out, if you have a construction business and you sell, say, $5 million in a year, and you tell that to your friend that's making $75,000 a year, they just don't comprehend what you're talking about. Just because you sold 5 million doesn't mean you put it in your pocket, right? So having people that understand what business is and the struggles that you have, and that you're on the same page with, and being vulnerable about it, to be able to say, like, I'm really struggling with this, and what do you guys do that could help me, or how should I handle this situation? And in the group that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, we talk a lot about, board of directors. When you're a business owner and you're at the top of the food chain in your little world, who do you talk to? Some people talk to their spouses and things like that, but if they're not involved in the business, they may not understand. So, that's been an awesome benefit to, building a relationship with you and working with you. And then, a lot of the guys and gals that I've been able to interact with at these events is just, it's a sounding board. It's some vulnerability. It's a place where we can go and kind of talk about the wins, the struggles, all those kind of things, and gain some insight. And I've gained some really good friends, in those interactions.
One of the more interesting things that I've seen, especially when we have live meetups, like the best part, the most valuable part is just getting to meet new people and the relationships that develop. But one of the consistent things there are a couple of consistent things I hear after that. People say, it's so good to know I'm not the only one dealing with this. That is something I've heard consistently for the last, probably ever since I started doing these events. And then the other thing I hear is they'll be inspired by what somebody else is doing. Like, man, Andy did 75 hard. And, that inspires me. And like Alex is dialed in his pre-construction schedule template. Like, wow, that's incredible, the work he's done. And then, Phil is doing this with his townhouse. Like, I never even thought about that. That's incredible. And Michael is over here growing his business to almost 8 figures in revenue. Like, that's incredible. So people see, and I'm the same way. I'm inspired by you guys too. It's like, I see what you're doing that's out in front of me, and it inspires me. So we all kind of level each other up. And I suppose it's that old saying, a rising tide raises all boats. So yep. If you want to raise your boat, get around some other people who are leveling up, and you almost can't help but level up yourself.
Yep. That is 100% true. I mean, I can't overstate how awesome it has been. It really is. And it's and it's fun. I mean, we do fun things. It's good guys to hang out with, and it's fun. So it works well all the way around.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, 2 standard questions I want to ask. I ask everybody I interview. First, how has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Like the story I tell is getting fired. I've been fired at least twice, 3, maybe 4 times, depending on who you ask. And it's set me up for success. Didn't feel like success in the moment, but turned out to be a really good thing. So I'm curious, has anything like that happened for you?
So I don't like the word failure, and I try to avoid it at all costs. But that's a conservative approach and certainly limits what I can do. That being said, it's probably just a difference in terminology. I make plenty of mistakes, and my team makes plenty of mistakes. I mean, we're absolutely not perfect. I try to go with the mindset that, as an old quote, I don't remember who, but falling down is not failure. Failure is when you stay where you've fallen. So, biggest thing is we make mistakes. Everybody does. Our intent is let's not dwell on them. Let's not make them again. Let's learn from them and keep moving forward. So stay focused when failure or mistakes or whatever you decide to call them, when they happen, focus on the lessons learned, nurture that growth mindset that we can get better from this, and don't make the same mistake twice. I think that's, I try not to dwell on, the failures. And there have been plenty of them. I can tell you all kinds of stupid stories about things that we've done, but that's unproductive. So
fair enough. Fair enough. All right. What is one thing that you believe to be true about business that some people might think is unconventional or maybe even a little crazy?
actually, I read this somewhere the other day, and I really related to this statement. I think a lot of people, pretty much everybody, I think, would say that hard work is the key to success. And I don't dispute that. However, I would say that work, or that hard work, needs to be properly directed, because I work hard all the time, and I worked hard for 15 years. I just worked hard on the wrong things. So I think, just because you work hard does not equal success. I think you have to have your hard work directed in the right places. So developing a vision to know where you want to go, setting goals to reach that vision, keeping those goals in mind with every decision you make, and working hard towards that end game. I think that's what's important. So, I think it's a very important differentiation to make. Hard work is the key to success. Yes, but you have to define it a whole lot further. I don't, I think everybody would agree with that, but you can work hard on the wrong things and never be successful. And, I think I'm the testament to that, because I did it for a lot of years. I was working hard. I just wasn't focused in my efforts. So, hard work looks different to me these days.
Yeah, that's good. I see a lot of people working hard. You could work really hard putting out day-to-day fires, work hard on this thing, and then jump to this thing, and then jump to that thing, and put lots of activity in lots of different directions, and you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be worn out and feel busy, but not get anywhere. So that's really good. I like that. All right. Well, good stuff. I want to be good steward of your time. We're running up against our time limit here. So one last question. Anything else that you'd like to share? You've got a group of some of the most intelligent, attractive, motivated construction business owners on the planet. And yes, that is me being pandering to you guys in the audience. But anything else you want to share that has been impactful for you, or just anything in general you want to share with these folks?
I think the biggest thing I would say is just, find your purpose for doing what you're doing, and embrace it, and, understand, learn, create your vision, and, work towards it. Keep your purpose for doing what you're doing in mind when you're creating your vision, and work towards it. I think that's a thing that I was missing for a long time. And, it was just, I was a ship lost at sea. I didn't have a direction. I didn't have a destination in mind. You can't get where you're going if you don't know where you're going. And, so I think that's the biggest thing I would say is know what your purpose is, why you're doing what you're doing, evaluate that regularly, and, use it to create your vision, and evaluate that regularly as well, because it's going to change.
Good advice. Good advice. So if folks want to connect with you, follow you, I'll put these links in the show notes, but what's your website? Where are you at on social media?
Pretty much non-existent on social media. That's an initiative for 23. I think the lad's been years since it's been updated. Website, kind of the same thing, but it's epicbuildingcompany.com. Anybody that's interested, feel free to email me. Todd can provide my email and the links, and go from there. But I'm not there yet, but I certainly, part of my vision is helping others, down the road. again, I've not figured it all out. I'm still learning every day. But I've come a long way from where I started. And, I'm certainly, want to be able to share some of my wins and losses and maybe lessons learned with some of the younger people that are getting into the trades, getting into this industry, starting their businesses, and um, it's only going to create a stronger industry if people can avoid the same mistakes that I've made for years. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's I read Warren Buffett or Jim Rohn or somebody famous said it's good to learn from your own mistakes, right? It's even better to learn from somebody else's mistakes, but it's best to learn from somebody else's successes. So yeah, you don't have to make the same mistakes. We all don't have to invent the wheel. We can all get better together and be that rising tide. So great stuff, Andy. I appreciate you sharing. It's been a pleasure working with you, and excited to see what the next year holds for you, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Todd.
You bet.